I want to welcome everybody to the Dimensions Training webinar class. My name is Shelly Annabis, and I am on the support team with eSoftware. Today we're going to go through a demo of the dimensions and just an overview of what dimensions do inside of Navision, what are the key things about dimensions, and how they affect Navision. One of the big things to remember about dimensions, and we'll kind of walk through what they are and their values and so forth, but one of the big things when you're looking at setting up dimensions in your database is to realize that dimensions are for a reporting purpose only. It just gives you more ability to report on certain areas of your database. So when you're setting it up, you have to remember that it's just to report on, and it's what information are you wanting to pull out of your system. So dimensions can be found throughout the system. There are three main dimensions. It's global, shortcut, and budget dimensions you can set up. Your global dimensions are your key dimensions. Those are the ones that are extremely important. You get two global dimensions, and what that means is those first two dimensions that you pick as your global will be, as it stated, global throughout the system. So everywhere that you look, those dimensions will show up in your views, reports as filtering, sorting, in your ledger entries for your vendors, customers, your items, your agencies, your donation orders, and all of that. So the global dimensions are your key ones that you want to make sure that you have thought through the process of what you specifically need. Your shortcut dimensions are the ones that allow you to do views and are a little bit more restricted on what areas that you see them in. Again, we have customized many things, many views to add your shortcut dimensions to there, but still there is a limitation. Your budget dimensions, specifically as they state, are specific for budgets. It allows you to put dimensions inside just for budgeting purposes, and you're just reporting on them for budgeting. Again, though, inside of budgets you can see your global and some of your shortcut dimensions. Usually the top 3 or top 4 of your shortcuts you're able to see as well. What does dimension really mean? The term dimension is described on how an analysis occurs. You have to look at it as like it's a two-dimensional analysis. For example, if you want to see sales for every area, when you use more than 2 dimensions when creating an entry, you can see the sale for every sale and maybe a campaign for every customer and a group for each area. So you can put those dimensions in there, and it just gives you a deeper analysis of your company. Now, there's many different areas of setting up dimensions, and today I'm setting it up I'm showing you the RTC version, which is our 2009 R2. We do not have the 2013 up yet in demoing on that, but we will shortly. So the very first thing I'm going to go to is we talked about setting up your dimensions, and the first thing that you'll go to is your general ledger setup is your key to where you put in your global dimensions. So once you have your dimensions set up, so here in this Cronus database, I have the following dimensions set up: area, business group, customer group, department. So I came in here and I set them up, and I just put the list of the dimensions. And so if you want to click on New is how you want to add one. And I'm just going to put in test. It automatically populates. You can put a description in and so forth. So once you set up your dimensions and you get into what dimensions you are, then after you get your dimensions set up, you just put them in here as your new. That's when you would go to your global dimension or your general ledger setup, and which we'll go through a little bit later, and put in which ones your globals and so forth. But besides in here, your dimension setup, you're able to set up your dimension values. And what are dimension values? So dimension values are subunits of that dimension. So for example, like you could have a dimension called area, or let's pick on the one here called department, and you can have dimension values such as sales, administration, and so on. So if I click on this one that says department that's already set up, and I go to the dimension values, I can see that I have administration, production, and sales that's already set up in here. And again, you can add as many dimension values as you want. And what this does is it said, okay, for this dimension, I have this dimension value that can be used. So in the department, when I'm choosing my dimension, I have these 3 values that I can choose from when I'm choosing and using this dimension. So this is how you would set up your dimensions. Again, you can always come in and block them because once you create and there's ledger entries out there, the system isn't going to allow you to delete it. So you'll have to come in here and block it if you don't want that dimension to ever be used again. Okay. So now basically I have my dimension set up. I have some dimension values set up throughout. So dimension values, again, I'm going to go ahead and look at this one for area. And you can see there's multiple. So again, like these codes are set up by numbers, and many of the other ones can be set up by, characteristics as well. So you can have it set up just as you want it to be set up. So you can do different dimension values. Now there's different dimension value types. So just remember that your dimension values are a subset within a dimension. So it's you can use it on ledger entries. You can have an infinite number of values with unique value codes within a dimension. There's quite a bit area there that you can report on inside of the dimension values. So here you can see we have Europe, but the dimension value type, you can put in different value types, and those are unique to what you want the dimension value to be. So in here, there's the options of standard. The standard is used for standard posting of dimension values. A dimension value type and the totaling fields together help you create the hierarchy that you want to have in the relationship of your dimension values. So standard is just going to give you the standard posting values. A heading is just a heading for a group of dimension values. So as you can see down here, I don't think we have any of them that are set up as header, but it would not be an option to choose it. So when you're doing your dimension and then you choose the values, if it's just a heading, there's no option to choose it. It's just showing you, let's say you wanted to put Europe, we could have put Europe as a heading and then filtered down and then did Europe North. The total is used to total a series of balances on dimensions values that do not immediately precede the total dimension value. So basically, the beginning total is just a totaling of where you want to start. So up here we say the beginning total of Europe North, so then basically it's going to total, this is where we want the total to start, and then when you put end total, or just total I should say, not you could do beginning total, end total. Again, this is just where it's totaling these columns here, 20 to 45. And this works just like the chart of the account schedules. So if I would put an end total here, like they did, it totals these from the beginning total, so it goes to the beginning total and goes down to the end total. So the system knows from here to here that I want these to total. Total is just a series of balances. So if you wanted to choose the header type to be total and you choose it at the end here, so if we went here and did 90 and then overall, I'm just going to put that in here. And then if I put total, then I can go ahead and do the drill down, and then you can total from 10 to I'm going to total all of these. So I'm totaling all of these, which would give me a grand total of them. But when you put the total in, it knows and does not use begin totals, but uses end totals. So the system knows that when it's calculating. So basically, this is just a quick overview inside of your dimensions to give you a total of dimension values. Many people use it, many people don't. So it's kind of how you decide to use your dimensions. Again, I forgot to say, and I apologize, that if there's any questions, you could either chat it down below in questions throughout, or at the end we will have a questions and answers session. So if there's anything that comes up and you want to take notes and write it down, you're more than welcome to do that, or you can type it right away and I will look and try to watch for your questions to come up. Okay, so setting up a dimension and setting up the dimension values, we kind of walked through how to do that. One of the key things is the general ledger. We talked about that before. So I have my dimension set up, so I want to go to the general ledger setup. And I always cheat, I'm terrible. I always type it up there, but it's quick and easy. And in the dimension section down here, you can see this is where you put in your global dimensions. You can see here you do the drop down, and this one is department and this one is project. Again, and then here you can see the dimension values. So you can come in and put shortcut dimension number 7, and you can pick one, which I don't know if I can pick test and put that in there. The key is, though, is that you can always come in here and change these dimensions, but again, remember, it changes quite a bit of your reporting process. So it does not go out and change the current entries that are out there. Or I shouldn't say current, the old entries, the past entries, it'll not change those entries, but it'll follow through to what your current entries are. And so we don't usually advise that you want to change them. The only time that we do is if there is an entry like department that you don't use anymore because maybe you consolidated with another company, they have a different way of doing things and you want to change your process. So then we advise that you could come in here and change a dimension, which is very common. Let's see here. So let's walk through. Again, it's key to know, it's very important to know which is your global dimensions and which is your shortcuts, because your shortcut dimensions will show up and be visible on journals and sales and purchase documents and so forth. But and then again too, another keynote is the very first two are the very first two shortcut dimensions, or I shouldn't say the very first two ones, the very first two shortcuts, these here, department and project, those are automatically your globals. So once you fill these in, it automatically populates your globals. The rest of them are the ones that you would have to set up, and you can change regularly as needed. It's quite a bit easier. The global ones, again, are the ones that we don't want to change as often. Now, the next thing, we're going to go back to our dimensions. So I can go in here. Again, it's quick and easy. You can do a new, and then you can see your dimension values through here. Again, I'm going to pick business group, related dimension, and then the values. You can see your values here. Here, all of them are just standard. They're just a standard type. So once you're just setting the values up and you don't want them to be anything else, go ahead and just click on standard. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here. So it's very easy to set up a dimension and set up your values. After that, you got your global dimension set up. You have everything set up as you required it through your general ledger. Your dimensions are set up and you can start reporting on them. So they'll be available to you wherever you need. The next thing that we'll go through is the budget dimensions. So let's go ahead and bring up budgets. So you can see in here we have two budgets that are already set up, 2011 and 2012. Inside of here you can set up, or I shouldn't say set up, but you can filter and do budgets off of your two, you could do it off your two global dimensions plus 4 of your shortcut dimensions. Again, if you do your show columns, choose columns, you can go ahead and bring in your budgets. Again, it'll also allow you, or not your budgets, your dimensions. Again, it'll also allow you to, let's see here, I'm going to click here. It'll allow you to choose your dimensions as well, and you can filter on them, put in the amount that you want to do by budget or by dimension with the amount. So it's very simple and easy to do, and that's basically all that you do is just add them there. It's not giving me the option. I just had it a few minutes ago. It is not allowing me to choose my budget dimensions. There we go. Okay, so you could do, there's multiple ways that you can do it. Right now I'm viewing it by day, but I can view it by month. And I can put filters on down below here, and I have filters on. And here's the budget amounts. I can go ahead and edit and put the amounts in for these three because I pulled it up by department. And then my budgets will come in and go with that. And then if you're one that exports it into Excel, it'll also bring through your dimensions. So you can see here, it has budget dimension code 1, code 2. So once I select these, that's when you can pull them in and decide which other ones you want to have on your dimensions. So you get the 2 global that automatically come in, and then you get the you get 4 more additional ones to add on to your budget. Let's see here. Once you get, yeah, we talked about that. Now, dimension combinations. So if we go ahead and look at dimension combinations, so you can go ahead and state once in your dimensions, it allows you to put combinations kind of like a matrix. And what this does is it allows you to you can block particular dimensions for certain journals or certain documents. You can say it has to be limited or it has to be mandatory. Let's see here. I want to do. You can make sure that if, you know, a certain item cannot be sold in a particular area. So it's all about what you want your dimensions and your dimension combinations to be set up. So when you look at your dimensions and the combination matrix, if you look at the area here, there's nothing. You can see that there's it doesn't have any limitations to any of the dimensions. I'm going to scroll all the way over. It's showing that there's nothing. Okay, so let's go ahead. At the top here, you could show column names. So like if you have a different dimension name, you can change it so your code is different from your name. And it just gives you the ability to look at either one. So the limitations in each one that you can do is when you bring it, double click on it. So when you're on the dimension that you want to be in, you just double click. And it brings up, okay, so the business group, I can say no limitations means that this dimension combination is always allowed on all the entries. There's no default setting for dimension combination. So basically, when they're in there, if somebody uses business group as a first dimension and the second dimension as area, it can be used anywhere. There's no limitations and so forth. So that's when it means no limitation. Limited, you can put that one, and that means where it's a combination. It's only allowed in certain circumstances. So you can go ahead and say it's only allowed when you're creating an entry or and so forth. So it depends on which dimension values are selected when you are putting in the limited and what area you're on. Blocked means that if anytime somebody's in the business group, they can never choose, they can never have the dimension as the area, the dimension combination excluded for any of the entries. So basically this just states, so if you are in the dimension and you choose an area dimension, you cannot choose a business group, or you can, this one is open, so you can have multiple dimensions. So let me give you an example because it's a tad bit confusing. So if you have the department or the area in the business group as your 2 global dimensions, let's say, and you're putting in a sales invoice or a vendor invoice, let's say. You're putting in a vendor invoice, and in the vendor invoice you have the department area, you fill that in, and business group, you fill that in. So this here allows you in that area to put both of them. But if I would put as, if somebody chose the dimension code and put in a dimension code in the area dimension code, and then I blocked the business group, it would not allow you to put any dimension in for the business group. So in some areas, some people don't want certain dimension codes in the business group, you know, is a combination of the area. But again, the key thing to note here is that this really, really, truly restricts what is posted to the GL or how your reports are done. So restricting this and doing this, I highly recommend that you have a good reason and you, because it takes a lot of maintaining and a lot of monitoring. So it can be a little bit cumbersome. And it also is cumbersome for the end user because they just, how do I want to say it? It causes more restrictions for them, and it gets to be a little bit cumbersome, and they might not always like it as well. Okay. So I highly, taking and analyzing it before you do any kind of dimension combination restrictions. And if you ever have any questions or need guidance on that, you're more than willing to ask us on how we feel about setting up this dimension combination. The next thing that we're going to go into is called default dimensions. And this is default dimensions. Let's see here. Oops, wrong one. Default dimensions determine how particular accounts or account types use dimensions and dimension values. So default dimensions you can set up to say that a source code, so for example, you can say that this, when anything is posted to the bank account setup, you can put in and say what table. I'm going to go just, I'm just going to set one up. I'm going to go to responsibility, and it's priority 1. So you can state that, sorry, I'm just looking at here. So you can state that for the default dimensions can be defined as all dimensions on all accounts, individual accounts, group accounts, for an entire account type, for example, like a customer account. So when customer A for AFLAC is chosen, it always has this default dimension combination. So let's say for when it's chosen, like if we go to a customer, I'm just going to pick one. So we're on Progressive Home Furnishings. You can set up so that there's default dimensions that are always carried through to this this customer card. So if you go into here, it has all of your customer posting groups. It is set up on the General tab. Let's go here. So we can go ahead here and say whenever this customer posts, it has the dimension value code. So I'm defaulting it and saying that when it posts to the GL, it always has this area of 70, which is American North, and it's code mandatory. So they have to so when somebody posts anything for this customer in any form or any area, it has to have this dimension selected. Again, I have where it says I can do multiple, so I can just say one dimension, or I can say all of the dimensions. I can choose customer group here, and I say that this one has to be large, and it has to be same code. So this is telling me code mandatory, that they have to fill in a code no matter what to post it through. But this one is saying same code, which means it has to choose when it's doing the customer in the customer group, dimension group, it has to be large automatically. It cannot be any other option besides large. So it can't be institution, medium, private, small, and so forth. So this is just saying when I'm posting anything to this customer, these are the dimension values that I want that it has to be set up on. So I'm telling it it has to have, in the area code dimension value, it has to have a code mandatory. So it has to have something in this dimension. So, and I'm telling it the code has to be 70 and it has to be code mandatory, which means that it will not be able to post without having this code in there. And the customer, when I'm saying same code, there's no option. It has to, same code means that it has to be able to, it must always have the same value code selected in the dimension value code. So whatever I put in here, it has to have it in there. So it doesn't affect the posting. It'll delay them and ask them for do it, but it doesn't affect the posting. So code mandatory states no matter what, it won't post to the GL without having something in there. No code just says that I want these 4 to be populated when you're doing this customer, but if there's no code, you can choose whatever you want, and I'm not limiting what you can choose. So again, many of our clients will use the default dimensions, because this will help them to make sure that they're not getting not very good reportable data into their general ledger. So it'll help them restrict what their users can put in when they're selecting and posting to the GL. And it'll just help in their reporting purposes, when they're running their reports and their financials, to be able to make sure that the data that's in there is accurate into what they need it to be. So you can do that by customer. Again, you can go into general ledger and put that on the chart of accounts as well, is another area that we see it quite often. Let's go here, and you go dimensions, and it's single and multiple. Again, you can have multiple, but I'm just going to go single, and this is where you can choose it. Again, it's the same thing, the code mandatory and so forth, but I'm just putting it on a chart of account. So anything that posts to this chart of account, no matter what journal you're in, will require that they have to have this dimension and a value or whatever I choose to have it set against there. Again, to note, this does restrict your end users on what they can post into certain areas. So once you're in like general journal and you have these set up, it'll make sure that they're not able to post through until they fill these dimensions in. Is one of the choices. So it does make and restrict your end users to make sure that they're following what you want to have posting to your GL. So it's a good process, a good way to keep your general ledger clean from your dimensions. So it helps out quite tremendously. We have tons of clients that do it, but again, I always caution on the other side of make sure that you're not going to the extreme and you're doing just what you need to be doing for your reporting and not an extreme amount of dimensions, because it will frustrate your end user. Any report that you use out there, I'm just going to go to the general ledger reports. Let's see here. There's many dimension reports, but you can put dimensions. You'll be able to filter by your dimensions on many of the reports. Actually, I think I'm going to go receivables. Accounts, age, accounts. So I'm able to filter down below here on any of those dimensions. So I knew it was department, so I'm going to go to department, code, and then it just gives me the ability to filter on this department. It just gives you a little bit, there's probably no postings because I don't have any, but it just gives you that ability to filter down. So that's the key to your dimensions. It's just making sure your global dimensions and your shortcut ones, that you're using the correct ones and where you need them so that you can report correctly. So any dimension can be, your first two and then 4 additional ones. You have your shortcuts, allow you to use them on reports. Again, I do have to say we have modified quite a bit to allow people to put dimensions in, their shortcuts in quite often. Now dimensions, you can get your combinations and you can kind of get lost in what, where it should be and who should be doing it and what should take precedence. Well, in here we have also default dimension priority. So after you have your default dimension set up, you can come in here and choose priority, what it has over the other. So if you have a customer card set up as we did, or a general ledger account, and you want to say that this code is mandatory, and then you have the customer as well that has a code of mandatory, it can be kind of a complication going to the GL. So if the code says it's, if you have it on the chart of account, a general ledger account, and on the customer card, it could be a conflict. So once you have those combinations and set up, you can come in here and you can choose from, let's see here, what area that it's coming from. Your general journal is probably your typical that it would, but you can put in here your source code is your general journal, your table, so you would come and try to find the customer table. Let's see here, customer, and you can say that the customer is priority 1, and then you can come and say, okay, now I want to say GL account is priority 2. So if I have the customer set up with the default of a department code, of code mandatory, of administration, and I have the general ledger account set up as an is a different dimension, let's say not departments, but location, and it says code mandatory is always going to be this one, or you could use the same example as department as well. So if I have a customer card as department, code mandatory is administration, and the GL account I have code mandatory as the department as salary. Those two, when they try to post when you're trying to post the customer and it hits that GL account, it'll kind of cause a friction between the two because they're both saying that they're code mandatory and they're priorities. So then the system comes in here and allows you to say, okay, when I'm doing this situation through the general journal, please use the customer as priority and not the GL account. So then it just gives you a way to say which one's priority and which one's not. This really gets in depth of how many default dimensions and your combinations that you have. Gives you the ability to just make sure that which ones are code mandatory. So in those situations, you're just going through and thinking, okay, which one is my priority? Which one do I actually want in this specific situation to be posted to the GL and not have a conflict? So that's allows you to do is put priorities on it. So we walked through everything with dimensions, the reporting of dimensions, how to set them up, how to have them in your budgets, how to do the defaults, how to do combinations and values. So basically dimensions are throughout the entire system of NAV. It gives you the ability to set up various types to help tailor for your reporting needs is the biggest thing. So, and always remember that setting up and using dimensions, you initially have to think about how you're going to achieve a better financial analysis result, because that is the key to setting up your dimensions and how you want your dimensions to flow. Great. Thank you all. I appreciate your time that you've taken today. And Sally, I appreciate you telling me that you had another user with you. We always like to put our second user on. And I hope to talk to you guys soon in the future on any other webinars. Have a good week, everybody.